Good morning. This is Sri Primo with a quick review of anything cricket which is going on in the World Cup. Um, I know we have right now gotten to a stage, the Super 8s are done. Um, we are now into the semifinal stage. So let's quickly get down to who are all in there. We have England facing on the hosts India and New Zealand taking on South Africa. But before we get to the semifinals predictions, we let's quickly wrap up the tournament so far, very high level, then the Super Eights, and then I'll get down to the semifinals, maybe touch upon a couple of good games that happened in the Super Eights, and some of the surprises that we saw, some of the resurgence of some teams that were not in contention over the last few years that have now come out with full force. And then we can quickly talk about the semifinals as well. So, as we can, I think I already did like a couple of podcasts on this. So, the 2026 ICC Men's T20 that's currently going on in India and Sri Lanka. Um, when I think about what happened from the regular season to, or the 20 teams that made it, and then made on to the Super 8s, a couple of surprises stood out. One was the uh, surprise omission of World Cup champion Australia that did not make it to the Super 8s. And in fact, one of the biggest upsets in the tournament history was when Zimbabwe upset Australia in the round robin. And then you had United States, with an impressive 93-run win over Netherlands, and Afghanistan winning as well. But unfortunately, they didn't make it. But the two things that stood out were the resurgence of two teams that, at least one team that had dominated world cricket for at least a couple of decades, um, from the late 70s to all of 80s, and even into the 90s. That was the West Indies. The West Indies, as dominant as ever in those years, went through a period of mediocre performances. But they did win one of the World Cups, the T20 World Cup. It was almost 18 years ago. But ever since that time, or maybe in the last decade or so, but ever since that time, they've been very spotty. Their performance has been spotty, and they've not made it to the big games. Qualified for some of the quarterfinals as well in many of the tournaments. And they've been left for dead, but a great resurgence with a young talent that has risen up and now are contending. And we'll get to the match that they played against India and I would say in the Super 8 round robin. But before that, I really would like to see how they've come out of mediocrity and then now going to be a force to reckon with over the next few years. I think they have the young talent. They've got a good coach, but then not only that, they got the solid group of players. They got some veterans, but mixed in with some of the young guys as well. Um, like you have the Shia Hopes of the world, Het Myers, and then um, you have a great group of characters that are going to be on Roman Powell, who's as good as a batter that you can ever see in that sport. So West Indies is back. That's what I would say. And the other surprising thing was the Zimbabwe going on. Although they didn't fare that well in the Super Eights, they were the fact that they beat Australia shows a lot of progress for that nation as well. So let's quickly get down to it. We have the semifinal schedule for March 8th at the historic Eden Gardens, and then March 5th you have the other semifinal. So those are the two matches that we have for the semifinals. So let's quickly get down to the Super 8. So in the Super 8, in the final standings in one of the groups, you had South Africa, India, West Indies, and Zimbabwe. And and when I think about um, the teams that are in that, you had South Africa, who's played brilliantly. Actually, I would almost call it, they are tactical flawlessness. That's what I would call it. They've emerged as like the number one team in Group One. They've, like I said, they had a 3-0 record in the Super 8s. They dismantled their opposition through big margins of victory, especially one that would stand out would be the match against India, where they completely dismantled India. They batted first and put India in a very tough position to win that match, and they won it running away by 70 odd runs. Um, when you think about South Africa, what really provided the impetus to their success, I would call it that they had a very good bowling attack and an excellent middle order. So when you think about, you got Nagidi, who was just phenomenal, and then um, when you think about the batting, you got Markham, who was just phenomenal. I mean, he was um, just really, really good. And I think the way he uh, kind of orchestrated the run chase, he was definitely the pick of that. And then you think about, you got Brevis, you got uh, Stubbs. I mean, they've got a very good lineup that you have all in and all out, right from the top to the bottom. So they got they do think that, one of the things that knock on South Africa is that once they get to the elimination stage, I know we all know that they lost to India in the last World Cup that took place in West Indies, but um, one of the things is that they have kind of embraced that role, and they have embraced the pressure of being the only unbeaten team remaining so far. Um, so you know I do think that they are a team to beat. Um, Things in the past should not come to haunt them, hopefully. But they've gotten a great team, a good balanced team, and I do think that they are one of the top contenders for this tournament so far. Quickly looking at the other team that also made it yesterday, that is India, the host nation. Now, one of the things is that I don't think their wins that they got even in the round robin was very, very convincing. Yes, they beat Pakistan pretty convincingly, but and USA as well. But I mean, they kind of struggled around. I mean, I think their opening order, definitely Abhishek Sharma, the failure of him to produce quality runs except for one match against Zimbabwe in the Super 8s, really is a cause for concern as they go into the semifinal. And that torrid run continued when he was dismissed early yesterday against West Indies in the Super 8 round robin. But when I think about India, the biggest thing that happened was that um, you have a good core group of very deep lineup that they have. Like when you think about what yesterday was, Sanju Samson was brilliant, 97 not out, didn't get a century, but deserved it. He carried the Indian team yesterday in a monstrous chase against West Indies, chasing over 190 runs on a pitch which was relatively flat. But Sanju Samson's, I would call it like um, his controlled aggression, but the stroke play, the kind of strokes that he was hitting yesterday between square cuts and straight drives, and you had the full repertoire of shots that Sanju Samson had yesterday to win that. Yesterday was almost like a quarterfinal. The winner of West Indies and India was going to go to the semifinal, and West Indies set a very good score, but it all came down to the meticulous planning by Sanju Samson, who anchored it 97 of 50 balls. Um, and I think the one good thing about it is that the Indian team, one of the things is that they have different players coming out. I mean, of course, you have Jasprit Bumrah, who's the anchor from a bowling attack, and you got Varun coming up with some big wickets, especially yesterday when West Indies openers were going great. I mean, getting that first break to really help, and then Bumrah got the two early wickets. But before you got Roman Powell just launching an attack against Arshdeep Singh. So India definitely has a very good balanced side. One thing that would concern me with India going in would be the horrible fielding that they have shown. Yesterday, two easy catches dropped by Abhishek Sharma. A lot of misfielding that went on, and I don't think with going against a team like England, they can't afford to do that. So you have India and South Africa rising out of the Group One as representatives of that. Now, as for the other two teams, and I think I kind of alluded to West Indies as well. One good thing with West Indies is that with the amount of T20 experience they get, especially in the upcoming IPL and also the Caribbean Premier League, I do think that they've really gotten good players like Romario Shepherd and then Jason Holder, who had like an amazing partnership. As you know, that they were 83 for 7 and won the highest 8 wicket stand in the entire history of the T20 World Cup. That they were able to resurge, and then they also scored 250 runs against Zimbabwe. So the big bad West Indies is back, and I do think that they're here to stay, at least in this format of the game. Now, how they show up in the Test cricket and one day international remains to be seen. So let's quickly go down to the other team, which is Zimbabwe. When I think about Zimbabwe, it was Sikandar Raza who was the captain, who was excellent. I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, in all phases of the game. But one of the things that Zimbabwe struggled to was the lack of reliable support from the broader Zimbabwe batting order, and that's one of the things that one of the weaknesses in the Super 8s. I mean, they were incredible in beating Australia, but very convincingly to say. But I do think that they did have some concerns in terms of like overall, I would call it the content of the team. If you look at the composition of the team, they need a lot of pieces to fill in the gaps. Now, Group Two, where the other host nation, Sri Lanka, was there with Pakistan and England and New Zealand. One of the things was that the pitches in Sri Lanka were relatively very spin friendly attacks. And England really showed they stood the cream of the top there. Uh, they one of the things is that they started in a very the first match they didn't really have a good match, but then they struggled to beat some teams in the earlier in the regulars in the round robin before the Super Eights. But they became the first team to actually qualify for semifinals. They dismantled all the three teams there, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, quite easily. One of the big things that the England team, and they would probably need this against India, would be the form of Harry Brook and Will Jacks. They've been just exceptional. Um, Even against Pakistan, they found themselves in a match-winning, um, severe match losing distress during the chase of 165. But England was 35 for 3, but Harry Brook was just phenomenal, hitting 100 runs or 51 balls, and just unbelievable. Just went back and forth and against guided England to this great victory with 5 balls to spare. One of the things is that you got Will Jacks, as I mentioned. He was just phenomenal. I mean, he bowling, even batting, coming up with quick 30s. I think England definitely, and then they also have the leg spinner Adil Rashid, and and that's something that they would have to take it when they go in from spin-friendly pitches to Wankhede Stadium. Let's see. I mean, again, even against New Zealand, England struggled, but again, they were able to. Will Jacks, as I mentioned, 32 of 18 balls with Rehan Ahmed to hunt down the target in 19 overs. So this is where we are with England. England is definitely the pick of that group right now. If you ask me, I would say um, the favorites right now would be, along with South Africa, England should be way up there because they are the only two teams that won all three matches in the Super 8s. New Zealand, let's get to that. New Zealand, again, they were again, um, they finished the group, tied with 3 aggregate points with Pakistan, but they only went through because by the sole virtue of vastly superior run rate against over Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan against the last match against Sri Lanka, they scored quite a lot of runs, but they had to stifle Sri Lanka with 147, and Sri Lanka almost won the match. I mean, it was 6 of 2 balls they needed in the last 2 balls, and they failed to win it. Anyway, I mean, Pakistan did. So, but anyway, but that by the time it was clear that New Zealand would already be in the semifinals. New Zealand, of the three matches they played, they only won one match, and then one was obviously no result, the washed out match against Pakistan. Something that I would think about. I know it's not possible, but I think they should have a look like a reserve day to play the match. And if that doesn't work, I mean, I think try to play something very quick. I mean, at least a 10-hour match or something like that. These no result matches actually benefit one team and doesn't benefit the other team. I mean, typically, that's what happens. Anyway, New Zealand, like I said, they have a good side, but they've not been consistent. They've a great team in terms of you got like the Matt Henrys of the world, Lockie Ferguson, you got Rachin Ravindra, you got the Satner, who's the captain. But one of the things that they've not been really consistent. But you know what? I would not sleep on New Zealand because I think one of the things that they are incredible at, and everybody knows this, and it will come down to it when New Zealand takes on South Africa, would be their highly disciplined fielding. They're probably one of the best fielding sides. And then they also know that playing for South Africa, a lot of the New Zealand players have also had some good experience in Bombay, in Calcutta. So I think they've played a lot of IPL as well. I mean, so did South Africa, but I feel that New Zealand team is much more, um, I would say, more experienced on Indian conditions. So that's where we would leave it. Anyway, as for the other two teams, you get Pakistan, which had a heartbreaking loss. Um, they lost. I mean, they had a great chance against Sri Lanka, but I just think that they couldn't really muster enough that. The other thing with Pakistan is that the one positive thing that Pakistan had going was the opener, Shaib Farhan. What a brilliant performance, statistically most dominant performance in the entire history of the T20. He was just flawless, like 100 against New Zealand, against Sri Lanka. What a performer! He had. Everybody thought that Virat Kohli's 319 runs that was set 2014. It was almost like 12 years ago. Would stay forever, but Farhan 383 runs. Um, and then something that that he needs to be very proud of, and something that Pakistan can look forward to, especially going into the future. And then, of course, Fakhar Zaman, who also played amazing during that Sri Lanka match. The problem with Pakistan is not having consistency in the bowling attack and also the middle order. And even against Sri Lanka, you saw that. I mean, they scored 170 odd runs for the first wicket, and after that, they could not really pushed the momentum. They could have easily scored 250 runs that day. And somehow, with 250 runs, any team chasing 250 runs will have a tough time and they could easily crumble. And that would have been Pakistan's way of getting into the semifinals. But that didn't happen either. So Pakistan should be proud of the fact that you had one man, it was a one-man wrecking crew in Shaib Farhan. And they definitely need to think about what they need to do about Babar Azam. I don't think he was really contributing that much for the side. And I think also Usman Tariq, while he was brilliant in some of the matches, they would probably need some good bowling attack. And again, Afridi was good for the pace bowler attack, but you don't have the wanted Pakistan attack that you had in the past with Wasim Akram, Waqar Yunus, and Shoaib Akhtar. I mean, that was just probably one of the greatest bowling attacks we'd ever going to see. So you need something like that for Pakistan to actually compete at the highest level with the Indias and South Africas of the world. Anyway, one of the things for Sri Lanka, let's quickly talk about them. Um, you had Dasun Shanaka was just amazing. He almost won the match for Sri Lanka yesterday. They had 28 runs to win on the like six deliveries. He had three sixers, and then it was 6 of 2. But Afridi was able to somehow come with two dot balls in the end, and that's how Sri Lanka exited. Now, think about Sri Lanka, very inconsistent. You have Disanka, who had like a big 100 earlier in the tournament, but again, so just like Pakistan, you didn't have like a consistent. You don't have like the core group of like the players to actually sustain that in like very high performance matches. So Sri Lanka, good season, but again, they will definitely need to go back to the drawing board as well. So let's quickly talk about some of the individual stand performances so far happened in the World Cup. You had Harry Brook, who scored a brilliant 100, who pretty much pulled a rabbit out of his hat. Of course, we talked about Shaibzada Farhan against Sri Lanka. You had Markham, who had a brilliant 82, which won the game for this one. Of course, the brilliance of Sanju Samson, 97 was the West Indies in a do or die elimination game. He carried the team on his shoulders. Other than that, you had Afridi played well, like I said, in spaces, but not that well. I mean, Nigiri from South Africa in the bowling attack, and then Will Jacks, and then Liam Dawson from England. So those would be the two big players if they have to pull out the win against India: Will Jacks and Liam Dawson and Harry Brook. Um, so let's quickly talk about the semifinal, right? You have South Africa playing against New Zealand, you had England playing against India. So some of the things I would say, South Africa right now, probably the most confident team going in, the highest run rate in the Super 8s. But one of the things that I would worry about South Africa is that they had some individual good performances. They need like a combined performances if they have to beat New Zealand. Again, don't sleep on New Zealand because New Zealand has not played well, but they do have the core group of players that can easily, like, they can come together like a team and they could easily uh, surprise people. That's what I would say. As far as England, like I said, they have been the perfect. They won 6 of the last 7 matches. They started in a slow way, but they have to play a perfect game to beat India. I mean, especially in India. But that's where it is. And India, one of the problems with India is that they have very poor fielding going in, but not consistent performances at the top. You had Sanju Samson who played brilliantly. Hopefully, the last 2 games, I mean, he scored 24 of 15 in the first match against Zimbabwe, and then he scored 97 yesterday. Uh, those should give him a lot of confidence. But one thing that would really concern me would the performance of Abhishek Sharma, both on the field and off the field as well. But I do think that India finally seem to have gotten the core lineup. I mean, they sat down Washington Sundar, but I do think that this is the lineup they're going to go with Sanju Samson opening with Abhishek Sharma, followed by Ishan Kishan. And then Tilak Varma was actually had like very inconsistent, but came out very good yesterday. But one thing that would also concern me for India would be the bowling attack. If they have to bowl a sixth bowler, like maybe bring in a Dubey or somebody like that, that would be a cause for concern against England. So I would call New Zealand, the pragmatic survivors. They have somehow gotten in there, and now they have to show that they can pull a rabbit out of their hat to beat South Africa. So I would think when you ask me what the predictions would be, I'm definitely going to think that South Africa is going to win that match against New Zealand, despite the fact I'm calling New Zealand the dark horse. And then England, New Zealand, England, India, and England, I would call India to win that. So um, that's what I think. I think it's going to be India versus South Africa, a repeat of the World Cup final from last time. And let's see who will come out on top. And we'll get to that final prediction later, but this is what I see it happening right now. Thanks again for listening. I know this is a long one, but I think I really enjoyed doing this.